everybody, welcome back to Right to the Source. My name is Robin Harrison and I'm here as ever with the Carlton to my will, Mr. Ed Birkin. Ed, how are you this fine afternoon?
I'm good, thank you. And I'm pretty sure you're Carlton.
Why am I
So I do
Carlton?
know this one. I do know this one.
All right, I'm not
In
Carlton.
West Philadelphia, born and raised in the playground is where I spend most of my days. I can do the whole of it, but
Chilling
people
out
probably
nice and
don't know that.
relaxing, all cool and shooting some b-ball outside of the school and a couple of
When a
guys
couple of
who were
guys who were up
absolutely
to
no
no
good
good started causing
started
in their
making trouble in
neighborhood.
the neighbourhood. Got into one little
Got
fight, my
one
mum got
fight, mum
scared
got
and
scared, said, "You move
said,
me, and your uncle in Bel-Air." Yeah.
yeah,
So
and so on.
yes,
Yes, that
the Fresh Prince.
of Bel Air.
Will Smith's best song in your view?
Um, yeah, probably because it's connected to that program, which was great. Most of the other songs were kind
Oh
of
no, I was asking
rubbish.
what your view is of the best song. That's not the best song, surely.
Yeah. Wait, what else? What else is better than the Fresh Prince theme tune?
Oh, I mean, I actually bought his album when I was younger, when I was at school. Big Willie
Millennium.
Style.
Oh, Big
No,
Willie
Big
style,
Willie
rather.
Style.
All right, okay.
I think that was the one that preceded it, because I would have been, yeah, I would have been about 98, I reckon, 1998. Um, I mean, I quite like, even though it's a terrible film, Wicked Wild Wild West. The
That
two
was
of us
quite a
I
good
like.
song.
Two of us. That's
Just the two
quite
of us.
his
Um,
son. That's quite poignant. Boom, shake the room.
oh yeah, that was him, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I
Uh,
mean, the Men in Black one was quite
Both of
good.
them. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, all right, fair enough, fair enough. His oeuvre is slightly better. I just have vivid memories of that one he did recently where he's just saying
Is,
like girls, girls, girls. That was terrible.
is he still sidelined after slapping
Chris Rock.
Chris Rock?
I mean, I think I would hope so.
I don't know. I haven't seen him in any films. I don't believe recently since then,
I think
unless the
he's
Bad
done.
Boys was since then. No.
I don't know if there's been a. I'm not sure if there's been a new one. Weirdly, the same year that the slap happened, I saw Chris Rock at the Comedy Cellar in New York.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was. I mean, obviously, he's very funny. He's Chris Rock. He is very funny. But it was
But
just
let's be honest. The BetMGM adverts are terrible, in my view.
it's not his best work. But I
Not
mean,
all of them.
it's generic. You know, you've got someone like Chris Rock, and it's fairly generic advert. But when we saw him at the Comedy Cellar, he just had turned up. So at the end of the bill, he came on and he did about 20 minutes. And at the start, he said he walked up on stage and he stood there in it for a second, and he just said, "Nobody approached the stage." And weirdly, like my first thought was, I could slap him from here.
So he said that being serious. Nobody approached the stage.
I mean, like, come on, he was joking.
Oh, I don't know. I wasn't there.
Yeah. No, you weren't. But yeah, some of the stand up that he did, it was then in the show that I think was actually live streamed on Netflix originally, which is where he actually talked about it, and it was a very good stand up show. I do enjoy a bit of stand up.
Okay.
Yeah,
Were you a fan of Uncle Phil?
of course.
Yeah,
Who wasn't?
exactly.
He'd
Good
have to be
show.
a monster not to like
Right.
Uncle Phil, who was also the voice of Shredder in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon.
Was he?
Yeah,
I didn't know that. I've got an Uncle Phil.
do you?
He's a nice guy as well. Yeah, I go to
That's
Sheffield
good.
Wednesday games with him. In
Nice.
fact, he turned me into a Sheffield Wednesday fan, so actually he's got a lot to answer for.
Imagine you're probably not particularly grateful about that.
No, but you take the rough with the smooth.
Yeah, yeah.
Name's a good pub in the Peak District. Anyone up there? I'll give you the recommendation. Barrel in Breton. There you go. Boom.
There you
You
go.
can you
Lovely.
can have that. if I well, I get free beer there in a way, but I can claim that as sponsorship. So we've now had our first sponsor of the podcast,
Wow,
Barrel Inn at Breton. There you go.
we're in the
Boom.
big leagues now.
We are. We are. Right, what are we talking about this week, Robin?
Right, so what do you want to talk about? Let's start by talking about the European Court of Justice. Because that sounds fun, doesn't it?
It does. Oh, fun fact, Barrel Inn at Breton, on a good day, you can see
Hmm.
5 counties.
Can you?
Mm.
Which five?
How good's your geography? It's in the Peak District.
My geography's terrible. I thought Kent was a city until I was in my 20s.
Derbyshire, Yorkshire, Lancashire. I want to say Staffordshire and Lincolnshire, but I could be wrong on one of those.
I feel you should know this about our sponsors.
Yeah. Well, I know quite a bit about the sponsors. Great steak pie, good food, good views. You can see, so opposite, when you're standing at the top of the outside the pub at the car park, shop dip down into the valley.
Hmm.
It's in the Hope Valley, and then the other side, there's a hill that goes down to the valley, obviously,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
that's where in one of the recent Mission Impossibles, don't know which one because there's been about 30. Tom Cruise, they spent millions, they actually built a railway line that went over the edge. For they filmed the bit where the train, I haven't seen it, train went off the edge of the line and blew up. And so I just assumed they'd do it all through CGI, but they actually built a railway track, and you can see where that
Practical
happened.
effects. I mean, that's not even practical effects, so that's just building and crashing a train.
Yeah.
Practical
And then
destruction.
Tom Cruise went to the local fish and chip shop just down the hill.
Nice.
There you go. A little fact. Anyway, yeah, let's talk about European court proceedings for people trying to get their losses back. You know,
Yes.
because you make a bet, you lose it, and suddenly you deserve to be refunded.
Well, it's. I suppose it's really helpful to get a taster of where you're going to fall in this whole argument. But yeah, I mean, obviously this week, I can't remember the name of the Advocate General, but a ECJ court official basically came out was one of the first, I suppose, in theory, clear rulings on player losses. And I mean, essentially, they're saying that yeah, I mean, it's basically.
It wasn't a clear ruling on thing.
No,
So
no. Well, this is the thing. This is the thing. I'm trying to kind of say, well, this offers some kind of clarity. It absolutely
let's
does not.
let's remind people. There's effectively 3 points to it.
Yeah.
One that people are saying we want the lost players are saying that because it's illegal, we want to get our losses back.
Because
There's a bit
it's
about
not regular, or no, it's because the provider is not locally licensed.
not
This is,
recognised.
in this particular case, this pertains to typical, obviously, German operator, German case. During this
But then,
period in
hang on. But
question, all
the
right,
second part of it. Oh, yeah. So during the period in question, Tipco didn't have a license.
they didn't have a license, but there wasn't a working licensing system because the German regulatory progress for sports betting has been, I think the most charitable way to put it is an absolute shit show. First of all, it was meant to be a fixed number of licenses going out to tender. They selected some, this was challenged. Then there was the idea that there would be this, essentially no limit in the number of licensees, but then certain elements such as tax rates remained prohibitively high, controls around spin speeds, stake limits per spin,
Yeah,
and
but
and we.
on the sports bet,
Mhm.
Tipico were paying tax, but they couldn't get a license, so
Yeah,
licensing didn't actually happen until October 2020. But that's the one bit. So there's the one bit people wanting
yeah,
the money back to the tax. There's the other bit they're talking about that actually still trying to argue Malta that their license counts and that it shouldn't have the individual states. But then
yeah,
also you've got Malta saying that effectively it doesn't matter what any individual state says. Nothing can be enforced against Maltese companies because we're more important than the European law. Now, all
Well,
this has come down on has
I
just
mean
said
that
that
that's
states
uh,
have
that's
a
that's a
right.
slight distortion and oversimplification. I mean, essentially, with Bill 55, Malta is saying that if it is a legal and regulated activity in Malta and its licensee is carrying this out, no matter where it is in Europe, it is, protected from prosecution. I mean, I think ultimately this ruling, where it really gives clarity, is on how Bill 55 is going to be treated, in that other European member states are going to just look at it and go, nah, that's not how this works. Like, that's where I think,
I don't even
it,
think it gives clarity on that. All it's saying is that states have a right to regulate their own gambling markets, which we've known. Like that's not everyone knows that. Everyone accepts that.
yeah, but I
As far
mean,
as all the
it's also that
committees.
local laws do apply. I think that's the other element to this. Local laws do apply
To
without,
the local market, but
yeah,
they haven't really said that Malta can't just say they haven't said that. I believe that you can enforce stuff against Maltese licensed operators. That Malta's protection bit hasn't really been bought into it, has it? In the ruling, it's pretty much just said that local laws apply there in the local jurisdiction, which is the only bit that everyone knew anyway and was completely uncontentious. We don't know if people can. What we still don't know, from my limited understanding of it, this doesn't give any clarity on whether they can get their losses back, and if they are
no.
allowed to do that, whether then Malta kind of says, actually, no, screw you, you can't, which is what
But
everyone wants to know.
equally, I feel that with Bill 55, it kind of says that even if Malta says that its people are protected, if they are doing this overseas, that can't be applied. Or it's almost like a step towards that.
When we talk about this next time, we should probably get a lawyer on who knows what they're talking about.
Yeah,
But
that'd
then
be a good
maybe they'd make
idea.
it even more boring than we're making it right now, which would
I
be a
don't know if
challenge. But lawyers can do that.
I don't know if we're making it boring. I mean, it's just essentially it's a naughty case. I mean, like at the core of it, you have a players, as you said early in the episode, deciding that they lost and therefore they have a right to have that money back. I mean, essentially, they entered into a contract to,
Mm.
stake this money. I mean, if they'd won a shitload of money, are they going to be then coming back and saying, well, there wasn't a, like, they didn't have a license, so, yes, I've won £1,000, better give that back. What's your sort code? What's your account number?
Exactly. Look, this may not surprise you, my view on this, but my view is that the people who want their money back are idiots and unreasonable, and Malta's stance on this is stupid and unreasonable. It is very clear that if you have local licensing, I don't care if you've got a Maltese license, you have to respect that. And it should be very clear to anyone with half a brain that people who, you know, use unlicensed operators. Let's be fair. Tipico is a they may not have technically had a license,
An
but they're
online
not some
license.
charlatans.
No, it's
Yeah.
like they wouldn't have had an online license. They obviously had, betting shop licenses. I mean, this is a legitimate company, and I think,
No, 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 no. Actually, because I was looking at this today, because I was actually reading for some other thing, the
mhm,
GGL's 2020 report, and on that, they don't include in the licensed market. They only include betting, even land-based betting shop revenues from October 2020. So technically, from my reading of the GGL's reports, even the betting shops weren't officially licensed. But look, for all intents and purposes, they're paying tax, they're knowing all of that.
yeah, they're
They
they,
were
they're a
a
legitimate or
well-run,
operator
legitimate company.
contributing to
Yeah,
society. So I think even to claim that Tipco is an unlicensed business is, ridiculous.
yeah. I mean, technically they are unlicensed, but yeah, I get it. It's not like you've got some
No, it's not like,
Curacao or
yeah,
Anjouan or I mean clearly we can't say they're not great licensing places, but someone without any license anywhere. These are not. Tipico is a, from what everyone understands, a well-run, solid, legitimate,
mhm,
fair business.
yeah.
So I mean the whole case is a bit of a joke, to be honest, but it has repercussions.
Of course, and there are further. Obviously, there are other similar cases in the works, and I think even if we see these cases as a bit daft, I mean, ultimately they do potentially have fairly hefty impacts on operators.
Hmm.
Like there's a few companies that have obviously been, kind of cited, such as Mr. Green and Evoke, or 888, which were obviously owned by Evoke, which is not in the best place as a business,
No.
but no. But yeah, look, these it's it's kind of frustrating in the first sort of rumbling from the ECJ and what this is actually going to entail has really kind of come to, you know, something fairly minor. I mean, like, maybe I'm kind of looking into it too much by trying to pull out the Malta Bill 55 stuff, which we probably should have explained, blankets Malta licenses from from prosecution, provided the activity they're conducting is legal and regulated in Malta.
Yeah, it's. I mean, which again, I think yes, it simplified it, but they're trying to effectively supersede other
Yeah,
national laws. But yeah, I mean, I think the ruling, the verdict, whatever it's called, is just a bit of nothingness. So yeah, it's quite frustrating, and it will just continue to drag on and on and on.
yeah.
So let's talk about something that does have. I don't know again. This does have some
Let's have.
insert
Come on, make
word.
the
Well, some non
transition.
nothingness.
Make the
Well, we
transition non
we didn't.
nothingness. Oh my god, that was
Well,
terrible.
well, no, because we didn't end well enough on the previous one. It's all a bit of
Well,
nothingness.
just yeah, is a bit
That has
nothing. It's
some
going to go on and
substance,
on. What about something like speaking is something that goes on and on over the course of March?
or has a finite end that will be over soon. Okay.
Yes, I
Insert
think
insert insert really smooth transition here.
yes,
March
smooth.
Madness.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, March Madness.
Um,
So March Madness. So why don't we
Tell
start
us
by
what it is,
talking?
Robin.
March Madness is the NCAA Division One college basketball tournament.
College
So
basketball.
yeah, tournament. So it's a huge event, publicly televised. Everyone tries to create a bracket, and essentially predict the flow of the teams from the initial seeding to the final. Obviously, no one has ever done this because it's borderline impossible.
Yeah, it's a knockout competition.
Yes, a tournament.
Make clear. Yeah, I know. But World Cup's a tournament, but you still have group stages. So just saying, it's a pure knockout competition.
All right.
And yes, what are the odds of getting it of getting it right?
Um, Vast.
1 in 9.22 quintillion,
1 in 9.22 quintillion.
which is more than 9 billion billions.
So how many zeros in the quintillion?
Billion billions. So there's 9 in a billion. So 18. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, 1,000 million.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why is it
Yeah.
called it?
You think
Yeah,
being
18,
called
18 zeros. Yeah.
18 zeros? Wow. But anyway, yeah, March Madness. So obviously, I imagine that the most trusted data and intelligence in the global gaming industry, or the purveyors of that sort of stuff, would have a bit of a steer for our 3 to 4 listeners on how much is going to be wagered on the tournament.
So this is interesting. It's 1,000 times larger than a quadrillion, which is 15 zeros, and 1,000 times smaller than a sextillion. So, which contains six groups. So actually, so that's how it works. So you should then have a Oh yeah, a trillion, obviously. So billion, trillion.
Hmm.
So it goes up. So every time it's 1,000 of them, it goes up. So you got million, billion, trillion,
Ah,
quadrillion, quintillion, sextillion, septillion, probably. Yeah, septillion. Interesting. There you go.
octillion. Yeah, wow.
So I never knew that. But yes, we do actually have data on this, Robin. Good. That
Fantastic.
that is a good segue. You see, I see how you brought that in seamlessly. You see, that's because of your media background, your wordsmithery.
My wordsmithery.
Hmm.
Taking letters, crafting them into sentences.
So, did you know, Robin, that March Madness is the single most bet on competition in the world?
I did actually.
Okay, good. But you didn't know. But you did not know about the quadrillion, did you? No.
No, I did
Um,
not.
okay, take a wild guess. And bear in mind, I think I sent you my estimates a few weeks ago, so you should have read them. How
Hmm.
much we believe that the legal US sportsbook handle will be on March Madness?
My mind
And
is going totally blank.
and to clarify, and why do you think about that? So when I say the
Hmm.
most bet on event, the most bet on individual game is the Super Bowl. But obviously, this is over 63 games.
Hmm.
So it's, when you take the whole event of March Madness, so the single tournament. So we have 4 billion US dollars of handle. Now in the UK or elsewhere in the world, we wouldn't talk about handle because it's not really that relevant. But in the US, they love to talk about handle because it's a big number.
Hmm.
So yeah, 4 billion of handle, and that's up from 3 points in our view, 3.7 billion last year, so 7% increase.
Wow.
Our Super Bowl was down, so yeah, who knows if this can be right. And that's across the men's and the women's tournament, actually, so
Right.
more than 63 games. Um, However, the elephant in the room, and if it's down, which will be blamed on, is these
Hmm.
pesky prediction markets.
Prediction markets. You never mentioned them before.
No, I love prediction markets. They're
Okay.
so innovative. We've never
Oh
seen
yeah,
anything.
it's
Actually, one of your guys wrote a thing on IGB, didn't he, about prediction markets, and they interviewed Mark Davis, who is one of the founders of Betfair, who was like, every single discussion about it is what we had decades ago in Europe with
yeah,
exchanges. This is literally the identical thing.
yeah.
But some people believe that iGaming only started in 2018, so in that case, maybe it is new. But anyway, prediction markets. So we reckon that then it's a bit harder to estimate, but forecast, but we give it a go. There'll be $1.6 billion of volume on prediction markets for this. And this isn't on like stupid side bets, this is actually on the tournament. But
Okay.
volume on prediction markets is not the equivalent of handle. So we
Right.
divide it by three. We've seen people try and estimate it between two and four times, but roughly three times. So that equates to 530 million of handle equivalent on top of the
Right.
sports books. Now, this is where I think it's controversial that actually, if sports books don't do particularly well on this, I
Hmm.
think that blaming prediction markets is very disingenuous because 530 million of handle,
Hmm.
seems like a lot. It's still
Yeah.
a big chunk when you're looking at 4 billion.
Yeah, of course.
But don't forget that over 40% of or 40-ish% of the US doesn't have legal sports betting in terms of population. If you're looking at like California, you've got Texas, big
Hmm.
states. Okay,
Yeah,
it depends where you're counting Florida in this, but open to commercial books. Okay,
yeah. Hmm.
so it would make logical sense that where there is not the legal competition, that these prediction markets are going to over-index. Yeah, more
Yeah.
people, like for like, more people in Texas would be using it than they would in Pennsylvania, by the fact that in Pennsylvania there's the competition of FanDuel, DraftKings, BetMGM, etc., etc.
Yeah.
So on that basis, we actually think in the states where legal sports betting is, where
Hmm.
there's competition for operators, it's a handle equivalent volume of 135 to 150 million. So actually a very, very small amount. So and then when you take that into the equate of that's 3.5% of the total market handle. And they make actually a lot less revenue, so it equates to about less than 2% of market GGR. But let's just stick with handle. That's
Okay.
3.5%. So if you suddenly see handle down by 10% year on year,
Hmm.
then or low growth, then to start blaming it on the prediction markets, I think it's just very disingenuous.
So
You
what's
just don't think it's the
then
case.
what's then driving down handle for
And
the
also, sort of
regulated
point,
sports books?
also as well, there is a portion of this handle equivalent, this volume, that's being taken by 18 to 20-year-olds that aren't allowed to. So that's not coming off the
Yeah,
legal sports book anyway. So
yeah.
that.
No,
Well,
no, that makes
we do. Well, actually, so we think handle's gonna be up slightly. If it's not, then you know, um,
yeah, yeah.
why
So if it's
might go
not,
down.
what? Sorry, on you go.
Well, would it be? I mean, there's a couple of things. Is it? I mean, potentially, we could be completely wrong, and it could be prediction markets eating in more than we are estimating. But I say I don't think that's the case. Is it a general macroeconomic slowdown?
Hmm.
Gas prices going up. Quite frankly, in the US, that becomes a big issue. I know we
Yep.
haven't really talked about what's happening in Middle East, but it, a lot of people care about gas prices. So cost
Mm.
inflation with things like that, that could have an impact. We've done the analysis on it. I haven't looked in terms of the interest in the games. I imagine it will be as interesting as the other ones. I've forgotten her name. This is bad. I know there's huge interest in the women's one a couple of years ago when
Caitlin
there was
Clark.
yes,
Yeah.
when she was breaking all the records. So you won't have as much interest on that. But then again, the women, there was a lot more interest in the women's because of that last year, even though I think she'd already moved to the WNBA at that point.
Yeah, she had. Yeah.
So there's that. And then the other bit is, a lot of handle is driven, quite frankly, by bonusing and free bets. So, if operators are starting to pull back on that and,
Hmm.
to try and whether it's because there's increased taxes or whatever reasons or pressure on profitability. I mean, let's be honest, share prices of US focused sports books have taken a bit of a beating recently. So if the view is
Yep.
they're going to pull back on promotional activity to try and get a higher net win revenue and to boost profit, then that is going to be amplified in the handle.
Hmm.
So they would be the two main reasons. So quite frankly, if I was saying you've got three reasons of promotional activity, if that's pulled back, and this is if it goes down, and we're not, don't think it will do. Promotional activity, macro headwinds, and prediction markets. I would put personally prediction markets as the least important of those,
Okay.
in my view.
That's very interesting. I think what's also interesting is obviously we're starting to see the prediction markets leaders, like the poly markets, Kalshi's, which let's face it are the new sort of like the big companies, like the big men on campus. Um, we've seen them launch in Brazil. We've seen them get banned from the Netherlands.
So, banned in Argentina, yeah, okay, but let's put this in context. They launched in Brazil, but
The
not sports betting.
Netherlands and Argentina.
Yeah, but in Brazil, not sports betting. Yeah, which
Yeah.
sports betting makes up 90% of their revenues. So, you know, let's be honest, this Brazil is not going to be a big market for them
No.
because they don't have 90% of their revenue generation there. And the only way they will get that,
Hmm.
in my view, that I am very certain of, is if they have, effectively sign up as a sports betting operator or
Yeah.
a betting exchange. They are not going to be able to get around and launch sports betting, with some bullshit argument, about it's a financial contract. So they've got no chance. They've been
There
thrown
was
out of Argentina, thrown out of Netherlands. I think it's France. Has kind of said that they're not interested in them.
so
New Zealand.
France. I don't know. I mean, France is an interesting one because a few years ago there was a company called So Rare, which might still actually be going, but it was almost a sort of crypto based, almost trading card game. And this was, it was a bit of a phenomenon. I think it was a unicorn, so it was like valued at over 1 billion early on. The founders seemed to have the ear of Macron, but ANJ essentially came in and said, no, 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 this is too much like gambling. So I mean, if that's this kind of phenomenon, kind of like big company coming in, of all places, you expect someone like ANJ to be very kind of clear and unambiguous about what it sees as gambling and what it doesn't. And just on prediction markets in the US, someone shared a tweet with me that was from the governor of Utah. Funnily enough, a guy called Spencer Cox. It was in response to a post or a kind of little video by the chair of the CFTC, the Commodities Future Trading Commission, basically say, yeah. So basically, he was kind of saying, yeah, we'll protect the rights of prediction markets operators, all this kind of stuff. A big video. It's like, we'll see you in court, that kind of thing. And the governor of Utah replied, "I didn't realize you held a, kind of like jurisdiction over if it." Kind of derivative such as LeBron James rebounds. I just quite like that, I just thought it was a great little comeback.
That is, but I tell you what, for anyone who hasn't seen it, please look up Selig, Chairman Selig of the CTFC. Is that CTFC?
Yeah,
And
CFTC.
CFTC, and look at it is his video on it. It is the most ridiculous thing in the world. It is so comical. I mean, you wouldn't. You
You
just think it was a
also
sketch. You wouldn't believe this is actually real.
you also
And
wonder, like, as a federal agency, as someone regulating a market, maybe we've just been lucky with the regulators we've had in gambling, which are largely kind of, whether or not the regulations are enforcing are fair or actually protect players and preserve the regulated market. Generally, they're pretty straight down the line, wary about showing any kind of sign of bias, anything like that. And then you get the chairman of the regulatory body coming out and saying, "Yeah, we're on your side. We're going to protect you."
yeah,
Like he should be
we're
saying,
gonna
"Right, we're
we're gonna protect these businesses that have just grown out of really nowhere because of
hmm,
sports betting, which to anyone with half a brain, this is sports betting, and they happen to like have big investors. Is the son of my boss. I mean, okay. Um,
yeah, yeah." I mean, there was another. I think it was on LinkedIn actually. I think it was someone had done some kind of Substack article. It wasn't something I'd come across before, but they made quite an interesting comparison between like a Polymarket, a Calshare, and Juul, like Juul. Remember that it was an early kind of vaping product.
oh
Actually
yeah,
don't know if
yeah,
it was
yeah,
that
I've heard of
early.
this. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, they were rubbish,
yeah,
weren't they? Yeah, they didn't last. They disappeared. You had
yeah.
two kind of puffs and whatever flavor and whatever nicotine liquid was in it disappeared. They were terrible. But they pointed out that this was valued in, kind of like the tens of billions. This kind of, essentially this kind of like, this is going to revolutionize the world. And ultimately, first of all, they were largely doing it because, through targeting younger people. So instead of like it being kind of a smoking cessation tool, it was get young people into this, it's cool, and also we're not getting them onto cigarettes.
Yeah, but I mean, at the end of the day, if you're doing watermelon flavor vapes, like it's, well, I mean, you probably vape with watermelon, but quite frankly,
I don't really like the
the,
watermelon flavour. I do have an
the,
Iron Brew flavoured vape at the
I mean,
moment.
that is just a whole new avenue we could go down. But generally, it's very hard to believe that a lot of these, especially disposable vapes, are not aimed at kids. I mean, it is just But anyway, that's a different thing. Yes,
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah, that's a
But yeah,
different thing. But at the same time, essentially, and instead of these things kind of taking off and, kind of like flying into the sky, people don't want young people addicted to nicotine, do they? And so ultimately, more kind of like legislation came into the US to prevent that sort of thing.
I would. I don't really agree with that parallel because yes, people don't want young people addicted to nicotine. However, I don't think there's going to be any federal government legislation that's going to try and slow down prediction markets. As I said, they're looking to actively.
So they,
And I'm not.
yeah,
I'm not saying because what I said before. I'm not saying it's because of his boss's son. I think that was more of a point of
I
regulators
know,
want to be
I
sure that any
get.
view of impropriety wouldn't be there. So the fact they don't care about the view of impropriety is just quite astounding. But they are clearly pushing this, and I don't think the federal government's going to stop it. It's going to come from the states. And
Exactly, exactly, and this is what I was trying to get to before your interruptions about watermelon flavored vapes. Essentially, obviously, in that situation, it was the federal government that came down. In this situation, it's going to be the states. But essentially, what happened, Joel, is I think this post said it was worth like 700 million now, as opposed to 15 billion or whatever. So, and the reason why I bring that up is I think it's very interesting how these things can fire up into the air and then come back down to earth very quickly. And the thing is, broadly speaking, you don't see that with gambling companies. There's always going to be the demand.
you saw it with NFTs and all that stuff.
Yeah,
It's
exactly. With
just
these, with
hyped up shit.
yeah, and let's face it. Do you think this is
Let's
overhyped?
let's face it. We saw it with gambling companies. Let's.
Well,
I'm not saying I'm not saying what the share price should or shouldn't be or what's fair.
mm,
But DraftKings had a share price of $72, even well, after $60, $70 for quite a long time in 2021. It went down to 11 point something, and now 4 years later it's at 24. The stuff got hyped. Those companies got hyped initially and then came crashing down.
yeah,
You
but
have
you
the
think of
prediction markets have been hyped unbelievably, and yes, I think. Well, as I said in my prediction at the beginning of the year, prediction
mhm,
markets are going to get screwed this year. I then thought I was wrong, and it was going to take a lot longer with the Supreme Courts, and it will take a lot longer.
yeah,
But actually, seeing the Arizona governor and people having the balls to go, I don't really care what Selig's saying. It's clearly a load of crap. We are going to stand up and fight. I think it's pretty clear they're not going to make any traction outside the US at all.
mhm,
Europe, South America. Okay, they may get into a couple of countries like Brazil without sports, so who gives a shit? It is not a new product, so any non-US growth is gone, and I think the states are going to be pushing back, significantly. So I would I would not go anywhere near prediction markets. Not that giving investment
no,
advice, but I think this is massively a
yeah, but as I say, I do think the gambling companies are here to stay because there is demand for their product. Yes, there are going to be fluctuations in the share price, but this is tried and tested mechanics that have stood the test of time. And essentially, these companies are all just kind of like iterations and evolutions of what was there previously. But with these products, I mean, yeah, it's just like I feel the hype is at an entirely new level. Because that's partially going to come out of frustration because, there's going to be it goes back to, we've talked about it before, GameStop. When there was I think it was on Robinhood, there was all those users that were pumping the share price and ultimately made kind of big gains. But it's that same kind of mentality, isn't it?
it's just hyped up crap. So the last podcast, I'd say last week, but you had to take a little break because you're busy, and
I didn't
apparently
have
this
to take a
podcast isn't
break.
as important to you. But
I've got other things to do. I've got many irons in the
look,
fire.
it's about priorities. But anyway, so our last podcast we were talking about Vegas, yeah, and is
Hmm.
this decline there? And I was saying no, it's just a bit of a pause in the
Yeah.
because of the strong growth we've had. Obviously, they're not particularly sought after sexy stocks at the moment, and you've got everyone hyped up on this. Give me a share in a Las Vegas strip, downtown, don't care, bricks and mortar, boring casino over any of this prediction shit. I would not be interested in any of it. As you say, gambling companies are here to stay. This is just a load of hyped up crap in my view that's going to come spinning down. But what was that NFT? I was trying to look at it. Wasn't there an NFT that sold for like
A
$1 million?
Bored Apes, I think. Was it Bored Apes?
It is a yeah. And it's just like just what people were selling, like paying for these NFTs, and they just can't be worth really. I don't
Oh
know.
no.
Are they worth anything now? Um,
There was one, and it was owned by some kind of internet man, like one of these kind of like influencers, like Logan or Jake Paul, something like that, and they'd spent like probably hundreds of thousands on it. I think they ended up selling it, or it was even if they didn't sell it, it's now worth something like $80. I may have totally made up those figures, but basically it was worth a shitload. Now it's worth barely anything.
there's an NFT.
Okay.
Yeah, this is an NFT. That in March 2021, Beeple's Every Days, the first 5,000 days, sold at Christie's for $69.3 million. I mean,
What?
it doesn't look like NFT was talking about NFT. Um, but they weren't sure who did it, and now they're confirmed anyway. It was one person who's got it. But anyway, they reckon here. I don't know how they do this, but according to the internet, roughly
Okay.
95% of NFT collections considered worthless or dead.
Wow.
Um,
There were those ones that John Terry was promoting.
we don't talk about John Terry on this podcast.
Okay. Okay. That
Nothing
feels like
nice to come out of talking about John Terry.
I was trying to move on and then you kept going on about John Terry. I feel like you do want to talk about John Terry.
No,
I don't really want to talk.
nothing positive will come out of my mouth. So
No.
let's avoid a lawsuit and move on.
Okay. I think that feels like a good place to finish for this week.
Well, one final question, Robin.
What's that?
How much did Snoop Dogg pay for his NFT?
What is the NFT of?
I don't know. Apparently it's something I'm not even on Instagram. Maybe I can still access it. So I don't know if this is even remotely true, but who cares?
Okay.
Well, I'm just reading a headline from Google, so it may not even be true. But apparently, this is great. Listen to us speak. It may not be true. In 2021, Snoop Dogg bought this NFT. Oh, this is probably a load of. I'm trying to say 1,688, $7 billion. I mean, clearly that's not true. Today it's worth $60,000. Comment below with your thoughts. It's just the whole internet.
Having said that, having just Googled Snoop Dogg NFT,
Well, you've probably got the same clickbait comes up on your internet as well. It's all connected.
in July, careful, in July 2025, Snoop Dogg released an NFT collection on Telegram, which sold out in 30 minutes. And how much do you think he made from it?
2025.
Yeah.
I would say he made about $12 million.
Yeah. Did you just Google that in the background? Right. That is more than enough for this week. So everyone at home, thank you very much for watching or listening. We have enjoyed speaking to you, and we'll be back with another episode next week. See you then.